Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. It is election night in the United States, and that is exactly where we begin. All eyes on America as that country chooses its next president. And our CBC's Chris Ensing has been following this closely, and he dug into an issue that hits very close to home for those in the auto sector. We're going to go to that story in a second, and we will go back to Chris Ensing, who's there live right now. We're looking at him. But first, we're going to go to his story on the impact on the auto industry that folks here in Windsor are looking closely at.
Today, Americans decide who they will send to the White House, and Canadians, they brace for impact, especially auto workers. See, policy experts, analysts, they tell me that there has never been a time when the automotive industry has been at the top of the ballot like it is for this election. And that's because there are two clear but different paths forward depending on the party that gets elected. The Democrats, they say, represent stability, a continued investment in the electric vehicle sector by incentivizing companies to build those plants and those vehicles on American soil. Republicans, they offer protectionism in a way they haven't seen before. And that's through tariffs that they would apply for imports coming into the United States, as well as a renewed focus on internal combustion engines or gas-powered vehicles that Republicans say Americans want to build and buy. Whoever is in the White House, they have power and influence that extends beyond the border. Just look at Canada's biggest jump into producing the vehicle of the future, right here in Windsor. LG Energy Solutions and Stellantis first announced the $5 billion battery plant in 2022, just before President Joe Biden pushed through the Inflation Reduction Act. That's full of incentives for companies to build vehicles in the United States and source components domestically. When the IRA was approved, Canada was forced to renegotiate the deal for this plant. The owners halted construction, saying it was working on contingency plans. Eventually, the federal and provincial government adopted matching incentives for battery production, which could cost taxpayers up to $15 billion in incentives. But it secures 2,500 jobs and renews the automotive supply chain in the region. Nexstar is now producing battery modules with cells starting next year. Industry experts say having this plant in operation is incredible timing.
It's important for us to make the argument that Canada's inside the tent. And the more operating assets you have that have American investment in them, and I still count Stellantis as Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, the easier to make the argument that Michigan and Detroit's node is just on the other side of the river.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have been pitching people in Michigan hard this campaign, with some of their final rallies happening in the swing state. Whoever wins, experts say one thing's clear: the American first attitude toward trade is sticking around.
The overall political climate has changed towards one in which I think free trade does not carry the power that it used to. There is more of a nationalistic sort of buy American component to policymaking on both sides.
And across the state, there are signs that voter turnout could beat or meet the 70% figure from 2020 in Michigan. That's when the state decided to replace Trump with Biden.
And our Chris Ensing is watching the election night unfold in Warren, Michigan. And that is where he is tonight, and he joins us now live. Chris, what is the mood on the ground over there?
Yeah, things have been pretty at ease right now. And just to sort of set the scene, I'm in Warren, and an area kind of looks like Forest Glade. Coming down the street, it's like you're heading towards the community center, and there's a house on one side that says vote Harris, and there's a house on the other side that says vote Trump. So people are being reminded of that choice just as they walk in here. And Michigan matters, especially this county. It's a Republican stronghold over the last two elections, but the Democrats are hoping to pick up votes here. The Republicans need to pick up votes here to try and win Michigan, a swing state that matters in the overall scheme of things. Voters I'm speaking with a lot for the first time coming out to the polls, others saying that they are here now because the economy in recent years hasn't been what they needed. Can I ask who you voted for?
Yeah, Donald J. Trump. Absolutely.
If it's Kamala Harris, what does that represent for you? What America are you stepping into?
I'm stepping into my faith in Jesus Christ. And nothing, my God doesn't change, but I still have a responsibility to fight for my nation. As a Christian, we have a responsibility to have a voice, and the church for far too long has been silent in politics. And that's a lot of the reason why politics have gone in the direction they've gone.
Who do I think's better for America? Well, I'll just state the last 4 years versus the previous 4. That's my opinion, and the good thing about being here is we're allowed to have that. I lived better 4 years ago than I did the last 4.
And if Trump is back in the White House, how does that change anything for you?
Hopes. I mean, that's really it. I mean, it doesn't matter who's in office. We're still going to wake up tomorrow. We're going to go to work, and we're going to continue on with life. We just hope that, one person has a couple things that we like more than the other.
I would say Kamala Harris, just for the women's rights, because I'm mainly thinking about my sister, and God forbid if something happened to her, I don't want her to end up keeping nothing that wasn't given to her consensually.
If you wake up, a week from now and you find out that Trump gets elected, what does it look like for you?
I don't know. I guess I probably won't be able to move out. Probably rent's gonna be around $1,200, and I probably won't make the living I thought I was.
If Harris gets elected,
It'll probably be more or less the same. Probably just gradually it'll get better. I don't know. Either choice is not really the best I'm looking at, but I'm just mainly for women's rights for my sister.
just on that last point there too, Katerina, I've heard that from a number of voters here today who say that they are not inspired by the leaders they are deciding between today. As for voter turnout, 70% of people who were registered or could vote in the last election did. The state saying they are on track to meet or beat that this year, and when we will get the results different from 2020 as well. That was when chaos erupted just across the river with people counting mail-in ballots after the election day had passed, creating chaos that led to change. So the state now allows those absentee ballots or those early voting ballots that have been happening for the month leading up to this to be counted ahead of election day. Many counties have done that. So it means we could get results as early as late this evening or tomorrow. To figure out what Michigan does for the rest of America could be some time.
Thanks for this, Chris. And I know you'll be tracking this all night long. That's the CBC's Chris Ensing in Warren, Michigan for us. And we'll have more election coverage in a second. But first, the big local story is, of course, the weather. We've been looking at highs of 24 degrees. Just to remind everybody, it's November 5th. So people outdoors, they're biking, they're walking in shorts. I mean, I don't remember anything like this before for the month of November. And this is just a perfect time to bring in Colette Kennedy for a quick weather update. Colette, how long is this going to last for us?
Well, we've got about another day, and then things kind of start to settle down. We'll put it like that, right? And, you know, sometimes our memories are a bit short because it was actually only a couple of years ago where the record for this date, or the previous record, had been set with a high of 22.4. That was in 2022. And then we're beating that today with a new high of 23.6. So a new record high for that daily maximum, and our current temperatures coming down. I thought we'd kind of look at a perspective because close by, obviously, Chris, in Michigan, some important states in terms of folks getting out there and voting. Pennsylvania, also a very important state for this election. And you can see really, in terms of temperatures, nothing that they need to be concerned about there on the mild side in both those regions.
Thanks for that, Colette. We're going to check back in with you later tonight. Now, it may not be our election night, but there's no lack of interest on this side of the border. Now, for those hungry for election coverage, the downtown BIA has them covered. Several businesses are holding watch parties, and our Jacob Barker is at one of them. Jacob, I'm not seeing Jacob yet, but I'm hoping he's there. There he is. Jacob, what has our city got in store tonight?
Well, Katerina, I think I might have found one of the best places to watch the election here in Canada. This table right here is in the front of Eastwood's Bar and Grill. You've got the TV screens. They're going to have a watch party here, so you can watch in that direction. And of course, across the river, we've got the skyline of Detroit, where the voting is happening. So if you do want to take in the election and have a crowd around you, the downtown is one of the best places you could be right now. Eastwoods is one of 9 businesses that are opening their doors, inviting people down to watch the elections and take in the vote that way. And it is no secret that Windsor has very close ties to Michigan and to the United States, and that there would be more interest on this side of the border. I did speak with one gentleman today he's with the Democrats abroad. He's been drumming up support on this side of the border. He was over in the United States drumming up support on that side, but he thinks that there is a chance that votes from Windsor and Essex County could help make a difference in the U.S. election.
Yes, I think that every vote that comes out in Windsor can help, especially the election as the polls are close. It's a tight election, and every vote that we can bring over from Democrats abroad is really an important vote, and I think it can sway the election to the Democratic ticket.
So if you do want to take in the election, downtown is ready and waiting for you. Polls close at 7, in Michigan at 8. That's when things are supposed to light up in Windsor's downtown. Kat.
Thanks for that, Jacob. That's CBC's Jacob Barker downtown for us tonight. And as the results of the election await, there are mixed feelings on this side of the border about the outcome. Josiah Sinanen asked some of you how you're feeling this evening.
There's a wide variety of energy out here on U.S. Election Day, and it's particularly felt here in Windsor, where we're mere kilometers away from Detroit as they cast their ballots throughout the day. Some of us are feeling a bit of anxiety no matter which way the results go. Tori, you are from the U.S., you casted your vote, and you're here in Canada as everything's going on across the river. What's going through your mind today?
A lot of things are going through my mind. I'm having a lot of same feelings that I had in 2020, just kind of like impending doom a little bit, and I'm just really hoping that that's not the forecast for this election.
Either one of them win, as far as I'm concerned, they will make the best decisions, you know?
I'm just going to watch TV all night till they make the declaration. And if they don't make the declaration till the wee hours, I'm still going to be sitting there.
I don't think there's a great option here. I think it's bad or less bad. So just, hug your loved ones.
Wishing our neighbors in Detroit a lot of best of luck with the scenario. You got to take it as each development unfolds.
And we'll have more on the election later in the program, but let's turn now to other local news. A 50-year-old man has been charged with attempted murder, accused of firing shots at a home in South Windsor. It happened yesterday afternoon. Police say the man drove a van to the property, rammed into multiple vehicles, and then allegedly fired shots at the home before fleeing. There was a woman at home, but she was not harmed. The suspect's vehicle was found in flames, and he was then arrested. Now the man faces 16 charges. Windsor West MP Brian Massey pressed the government in the House of Commons today on the City of Windsor's lawsuit against Ottawa. He called for the government to reimburse the city for outstanding expenses related to the 2022 Ambassador Bridge blockade. The public safety minister didn't rule out further compensation for the city.
Mr. Speaker, Windsor is being abused and taken for granted by the Liberals yet again. It's a sad state that the city must sue the federal government to recoup the cost of the Ambassador Bridge blockade. While the Conservatives supported this illegal activity that hurt the economy and public safety, the Liberals are making Windsor taxpayers foot the bill. This means less money for roads, parks, housing, and emergency services. Less services for Windsor because of Liberal failures. Instead of forcing Windsor to fight in court, will this government repay the city and finally take responsibility for federal border costs as they should?
The Honourable Minister for Public Security.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank our colleague from Windsor for that important question. He's right. At a time when the Conservatives were supporting the illegal acts of the convoy, the City of Windsor and the province of Ontario were partners with the Government of Canada in trying to bring this horrible crisis to a peaceful conclusion. I was happy some months ago to have an opportunity to talk to the Mayor of Windsor. My colleagues on this side of the House have also been talking to me about what we can do to support the City of Windsor. And Mr. Speaker, we're always open to working with the City of Windsor. They've been a valuable partner to our government.
A live look outside there at our neighbors in the States this election night. And when we come back, we'll have more of that election coverage. Stay with us. Welcome back. We've been telling you that it is finally Election Day in the United States. After months of campaigning, American voters are getting to choose between two starkly different candidates. Here's more from our reporters covering the story from Washington and Pennsylvania.
I'm Karen Pauls in Washington. Millions of Americans are descending on polling stations today. At the same time, election officials and law enforcement are dealing with threats and disinformation, trying to reassure voters it's safe.
Pennsylvania's election will be free, fair, safe, and secure.
Anybody who thinks it's time to play militia, F around and find out.
Around Washington, more barricades, more police presence, even some businesses boarded up. Concern about a repeat of the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters. There was a man arrested at the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center Tuesday. Police say he smelled like fuel.
We found a flare gun, a lighter, and a torch lighter in his jacket.
The National Guard has also been dispatched to many states. At some polling stations, there are metal detectors and police officers. Law enforcement using drones to monitor activity around polling places. There are even snipers on standby for deployment. Among those voting today, the Republican candidates for president and vice president, Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance. Trump says he's confident.
Look, I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the three. Of course, there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people.
Vance and Trump will watch the election results from his home at Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Washington, getting briefings and doing some radio interviews. She and her running mate, Tim Walz, voted in advance polls. Walz stopped by a diner in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to encourage voters to vote in what he called a free and open election.
And I think the choice couldn't be starker. We saw the closing arguments of one of hopefulness, unity, and a focus on the middle class. The other one of dark, divisive, focused on himself.
Harris will host an election watch party on the campus where she went to school, at Howard University. The race remains tight and results could be slow to come in, which means that even when the night ends, Americans still may not know who their next president will be. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Washington.
I'm Richard Madden, following the presidential campaign here in battleground Pennsylvania. Well, voting is underway in one of the swingiest counties in one of the swingiest of swing states that's up for grabs. We're here in the Philadelphia suburbs of Bucks County. Voters here could very well determine who wins Pennsylvania and therefore possibly the election. We are told voting has been fairly steady throughout the day. The lineups haven't been too long, but interest is high, and they even have soft pretzels to satisfy some of these hungry voters. Now, officials have said turnout has been steady, voting has been going smoothly, and voters we spoke to here appear to be just as divided as the polls suggest.
I voted for Kamala because I think it's time to lift the glass ceiling, and I think it's great that my one and only granddaughter gets the opportunity to see that a woman can rule this country.
She's not run any kind of company whatsoever. So Trump he's had successes, he's had failures, but you know what? The guy has experience, and that is where I think this country needs to be.
I think there's a difference between what we know as traditional Republicans and what's now being called the MAGA Republicans. So, you know, I'm not in that camp. I think they pretty much kind of like hijacked the party.
Uncle Trump.
Uncle Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, just to underscore Pennsylvania's political importance, Vice President Kamala Harris ended her campaign in Philadelphia, holding a star-studded concert with celebrities urging voters to get out and vote. The path to the White House runs straight through this state. So now, Americans wait to learn how voters here decided. Richard Madden, CBC News, Bensalem, Pennsylvania.
Stay with us after the break. Colette Kennedy will join us for your full weather forecast. Clay Kennedy is back with us for a wider look at our weather forecast now. We had a really warm temperatures today, but as you said, it's going to take a dip. So talk us through it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, super warm today, record-setting temperatures with the new daytime maximum, and we could set some records even with the overnight temperatures because they're so mild. Tomorrow, we just adjust a little bit, but the temperatures aren't really falling off until we get to about Thursday, and I just mean coming back closer to seasonal. So let's take you through all the details of that, okay? Current readings, 21 for Windsor, 20 for Chatham-Kent, and you're seeing or experiencing the same thing in Sarnia, and then a couple of teens there, including for London and Kitchener-Waterloo. And those winds, which have been gusty at times, I mean, the most important component has been, or is now, just the direction, that southwesterly to southerly flow. That's what's kept things so mild through the day and pushed us to that new daytime high, 23.6, the old record just a couple of years ago, 2022, of 22.4 degrees. We do have, though, some wet weather coming through, but mostly in the later evening and overnight hours that we'll be experiencing this, so it's relatively short-lived. As this moves through, the frontal boundary comes through, and you can see for now we've got the cloud cover, but otherwise things are still dry, so give it another hour or two before this really starts to move on in. But as it goes through, it probably will only last a couple of hours as it's passing by. So it's going to sort of make haste and not that wide in terms of what's happening with the wet weather. Not that heavy either. So we'll deal with that by about 3 a.m., clearing away from Windsor and Leamington area and pushing further on to the east. Now 9 a.m. I've stopped it here. Still quite a bit of cloud cover around, but you can see it's starting to break up a little bit, and that will continue so that we should get some decent breaks in there into the afternoon hours, or at least becoming kind of a mix of sun and cloud. So improving conditions in that sense. Winds turn towards the west, 20 to 40 kilometers an hour. And by the way, Thursday, if it is sun you're looking for, a better chance at just getting full sun as we go into Thursday. In terms of the amount of rainfall coming through, again, I said it's not going to last that long, so it can't really, in this case, be putting much down. 2, 3 to 5 millimeters of rain. Overnight tonight, my temperatures have been disappearing, but I'll tell you, the overnight low, and we'll reach that around 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and it's not going to be that low. It's going to be around 16 to 17 degrees, so very mild overnight. Then we'll push back up to 19 degrees for tomorrow into the afternoon hours. Thursday with that sunshine, the temperatures are still above seasonal, but they're just coming back closer to where they should be as we're moving into November. Saturday, looking, Katarina, like that will be a dry day for us, but I do anticipate the next round of rain coming in for the second half of the weekend.
Got it. Thanks so much for that, Colette, and thanks to you all for watching. That is it for CBC Windsor News. Have a good night.